I was on your podcast
Yes.
a while ago, and now you're on my podcast. And for those people that don't know you or who you are, you've been very candid and open about your life experiences of overcoming Tourette's and also ADHD. And it was very challenging initially, that pivotal moment where you transitioned to television. But can you take me back through the early years and what it was like growing up, being diagnosed with ADHD and Tourette's?
So when I was younger, I was diagnosed with Tourette's. Later in life, I got an ADHD diagnosis. I didn't know that. Yeah, I will answer that question. But when I was an adult, I started working for myself. I had my own business. And I really wanted to be able to sit down and concentrate and be highly effective because I was working for myself, which meant if I was wasting time, I was wasting money. And so I said to my mum, I was like, hey, where's my ADHD diagnosis? Because I want to get some meds, try meds. And she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, when I got diagnosed with Tourette's, they gave me ADHD as well. So give me that. And she goes, no, you didn't. I was like, what? So I had to go through that whole process as an adult, as like a 30-year-old. But yes, go back to, I was 10 years of age when I got my diagnosis. Prior to that, my whole life, I had been presenting tics. Now, before I knew they were called tics, I called them habits. And the way we kind of were a bit aware of them is I would have a fringe in my hair and I'd flick the fringe out of my eyes. Then I got a haircut and I still flicked. And my mum was like, wait a second, why are you flicking if there's no fringe? And then there's also like an accumulation of movements that I used to do, like excessive sniffing or blinking and things like that. And then as I got older, they would become more intense. Then I got diagnosed, and it was only because there was a documentary that my grandmother was watching, or an interview on like ABC radio at night, and my nana was listening to it, and then she called mum and was like, this is exactly what Seamus has.
Mm.
And then we went through the diagnosis process, went through it back and forth a few times to the Mater Hospital here in Brisbane, the Children's Hospital. And they basically gave me a Tourette's diagnosis. But I always say that the only thing it gave me was I stopped calling those things habits and I called them tics.
Yeah.
I just had a name and I understood them. But that was it. Didn't solve anything, didn't change anything, didn't cure anything.
And were you suspected to, make a recovery? Because a lot of people misunderstand with Tourette syndrome. It's a lifelong journey, isn't it?
Yes.
There's no cure for this. And I'm sure you must have been suspected to bullying. How were those experiences for you? How did you cope, being in school and, having this thing that you were quite unaware of at that stage?
Well, there was a few more things at play. Like I was a really hyperactive kind of out there kid, and being hyperactive and out there, plus having these really visual like movements like that and noticeable. Plus I was a relatively confident kid as well. So when people have confidence, people who aren't confident like to attack confident people to bring them down.
That's right.
Plus being hyperactive, I'm always the center of attention. Therefore, on the outskirts, the other kids are going to attack the kid in the middle. Plus having the Tourette's, they had something to use to get me.
Yes.
So essentially, I would have had that attention or negative attention or bullying if I didn't have Tourette's, but that's what they used to get me and bring me down, so to speak. So yes, having Tourette's, you're a sitting duck because you've got something so visual, so distracting. And when you're younger, you can't control it. So it's very overwhelming and very emotionally frustrating because you go through this period of like hating them because you didn't want them, you didn't ask for them, and now everyone else is having a go at you for them. You're like, no, why me? And you get angry at the world. I remember I used to come home and I would have tic fits and I couldn't explain it, but I'd be sitting at the kitchen and like uncontrollably ticking. And then I didn't know what was happening. So I'd run away and then the tics would follow me and then I'd run away further and I'd start crying and freaking out because I felt like there was a virus taking over my body. Have you ever seen those videos where people they have a fake snake with some fishing line and they attach it to someone's belt?
Yeah.
And so look at, and they run and the snake follows them.
Yeah.
Well, that was the same feeling. I would run, but these things were staying with me and I was trying to get them out. I'd punch myself, I'd punch walls, I'd get angry, I'd because I had these things that I couldn't see that were taking over my body.
Mm.
So that was really frustrating. And then I had to go through this acceptance period of really understanding these aren't going anywhere. I have to learn to live with them, and I have to learn how to manipulate them and use them and control them, because I don't like not being in control. So then I embarked on a 2-decade journey of understanding what the tics are, what they feel like when they come on, and how to control them.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. And what was your immediate reaction from your family? How did they take it when you were first diagnosed?
Well, they always knew because they were always there. I was always ticking. They just went, oh, he ticks because it's called Tourette syndrome. It wasn't a shock. It was just finally we were able to put a name to these movements that I was doing. But I will say my family were very, very good, very supportive. Both my mum and dad, very good. The best thing that my mum ever did, and I always say this because I do a lot of workshops with parents and teachers, and I always say, my mum never spoke for me. So in a social setting, she would never introduce me and say, this is Seamus. Seamus has Tourette. Seamus has Tourette.
Yeah.
So I wasn't. So then when another adult would be like, why does he keep doing that? She wouldn't, again, she would just say, well, how do you want to answer it? And I would tell them if I wanted to, or I'd lie if I didn't want to. Mm. But what it did is it gave me ownership. That was mine. I could lie. I could be honest. It was mine. I do what I want. And I believe that was the catalyst of taking control.
Yeah.
Because I was in control. I was in the driver's seat. I know it's my narrative. So I can pick and choose. And just having that mindset from a young age, which I believe if you have Tourette's at a young age, you are gifted with that mindset because you kind of don't have any other choice. So there's nothing else you can do other than work on it.
It must be so difficult as well. And for those people that don't really have an understanding of Tourette's, I guess it's on a spectrum, isn't it? But can you talk about different types, or not types, but the umbrella of autism spectrum? Because I think Tourette's falls on there as well. Is that correct? And there's different levels of Tourette's, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Tourette's is a neurological condition. It's a condition and it's neurological, right? Underneath that, there are cousins to this diagnosis. Cousin autism, ADHD, OCD, ODD, anxiety, sleep disorders, blah, 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 blah. It seems as the years go on and the information gets more and more out there, the diagnoses are becoming more, not only frequent, but wider. And there's more and more of them, like a recent one, ADHD, ADHD and autism.
Oh, wow.
And then we're seeing adult onset ADHD, et cetera, et cetera. But it's never just one. It's always coupled with something else. Okay. So underneath, let's just talk for Tourette's. So the numbers are 1 in 100 kids have Tourette's, and the numbers then go into 1 in 200 adults have Tourette's, which that number is actually really, I don't want to say controversial, but probably not true because when you have it forever. Very rarely, it's very common for a child to have one tic or maybe 2 tics and for them to go away. That's like an adolescent tic. It's normal. But Tourette's, which is the combination of both motor and vocal for at least 12 months, that ain't going away. But if you have it as a kid, by the time you're an adult, you're better at masking, suppressing, redirecting. So as an adult, you might not present.
Yes.
And therefore it doesn't register. So they say it's 1 in 100 kids, 1 in 200 adults. Anyway, inside that number of 1 in 100, 10% of the population have the extreme Tourette's, the really complex one, which a lot of people, which is what's famous. That's why Tourette's is famous, the swearing, right?
Yeah.
And that's called coprolalia. Coprolalia is the swearing profanity tic. And why it's so funny, because the Latin translation of coprolalia means shit, talk.
That's
Copro
amazing.
is shit. Lalia is talk.
That's-
Like, literally, it's like the scientists were lazy that day. Like, what does he do? He talks shit. Yeah, it's coprolalia. That's what happens. And then you've got copropraxia, which is the gestures, sexual gestures, rude gestures. Then you've got palalalia, which is repeating your own. Palalalia is repeating your own sentences and words and actions. Echolalia is mimicking other people's words, actions.
Yes.
Then you've got echopraxia, and then you've got impulsions. It's very extreme. It's very complex.
Yeah. One of the saddest stories I ever heard about Seamus was an individual, I think, in the UK. He had a very bad severity of Tourette's. He had the swearing,
Mhm.
and he reportedly got bashed
Mm.
on a train. These four individuals bashed him because they thought that he was talking about them, which he wasn't. He was trying to explain that he has this condition. Are more and more people now becoming a little bit more understanding, a little bit more sympathetic towards people that do have certain conditions, or is there still a lot of work that needs to be done?
I would think, yes, a lot of people are a lot more aware, a lot more conscious and compassionate.
Mm.
However, you will never, if you've got Tourette's, people are always going to side eye at you, double take at you, question you, look at you weird. Always.
That's right.
That'll never go away ever. But I do think because of the increase of diagnosis, because of the awareness of a lot of neurodivergent conditions, people are becoming a lot more aware.
Yes.
And probably less judgmental. But in saying that, people still aren't. And one big thing I've noticed, Tourette's, in my mind, is still pretty rare.
Mm.
I still see people, like I saw a guy at the gym the other day, and I'm working out and I hear this. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I glance and it's a guy. I'm like, is he sniffing? Has he got a cold? What's happening? And he kept doing it. And then I saw Moo. I was like, oh, he's got Tourette's.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, I want to be like, bro, what's up? Tourette, buddy. Woohoo.
Yeah.
But I have no idea where he's at in that journey. He could be super insecure by it. He could be angry and like, how dare anyone look at me, and not be ready to kind of be open about it, which I see a lot of people are. They're very insecure, very scared. They don't like it and they hate it. And so to kind of go up and point it out to someone, you just don't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just have to ignore. But I try and throw a little bit of a flag out there, like, because obviously if I see him ticking, I tick, because they're not contagious, but you can set someone off.
Yeah, that's right. And is it more common in boys or girls?
Supposedly, the statistics indicate it's more common in males than it is females. Again, I like to challenge that because it's just because females are better at masking. So just the same as adults are better at masking, that's why it's 1 in 100, 1 in 200. I challenge that there's identical numbers in male and female, but females are better at masking. That's when it comes to ADHD, autism, Tourette's, everything.
Really?
They can mask better than males, naturally.
They can disguise it better?
Mm-hmm. They can mask it, suppress it, and I guess pretend to be normal, so to speak. That's why I think that statistic is there. Whether it's true, I don't believe it. What I have found in my research is that there's a lot of inconclusive evidence. There is a lack of study. There's also a lack of sample sizes of study and long-term studies. For example, the medication that is best used for Tourette's is marijuana, THC, specifically THC.
Yep.
But they still haven't done enough long-term large studies. It's only small sample sizes, which means they can't legally say this works. They haven't tested enough.
Yeah.
So I remember asking, why? Why don't we have the information? Why is this still such a large question mark around specifically Tourette's? The only conclusion I can get to is it is not terminal. It is not, in the world of science, not an illness. It's not going to kill you. It's just an anomaly and a bit of a novelty, a bit odd, but it's not dangerous. So they put it to the side. But if you look at some of the extreme cases, it is pretty heartbreaking for a lot of the extreme 10% cases. And I know of a lot of people who have taken their own life because they have Tourette's. So I reckon there should be some more study. Just for example, technically, it doesn't exist in Africa.
Really?
Yeah. So in Australia, it's 1 in 100. In the UK and America, it's around the 1 in 150. They slightly differ. Doesn't exist in Africa. Not true. Of course it exists in Africa, but they don't test it. It's zero testing. They have never undergone any sort of research or study there.
Yeah.
Why? They don't have the money. So they don't do it.
Fascinating. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And going back to school and your upbringing, I mean, it must have been incredibly difficult and hard. Um, kids they can be so cruel, they can be so mean. But throughout school, what were some of your coping mechanisms or mindset shifts that help you get through those years?
Primary school, I would fight. I
Mm,
used to fight.
yeah.
They'd tease me, we'd punch on. Then I went to high school and they were all so much bigger than me. And I'm like, I'm going to lose this. It actually took me a few years to learn not to use my fists, but to learn to use my words. But in that few years, I just copped it on the chin. I just had to cop it and not retaliate. And I didn't know what else to do if it wasn't violence, if it wasn't anger, or what else. Took me a few years to work out socially how to sort of present myself in a way, I guess, not to bluff, but to show someone I can handle myself. And I don't mean physically. I mean, I guess if you look at a lot of social interactions, especially with young men, they test you. They'll throw comments at you. They'll take little social jabs, like verbal jabs. And if you can handle that banter quickly and swiftly, and if they can tell it affects you, you've lost. But if you project this sense of it doesn't hurt me and I'm faster and wittier, then they ain't going to do it again. So I had to kind of learn that through the schoolyard, which meant I had to cop it. I just had to cop it until I learnt how to use my words and my social confidence to then... The biggest thing I learnt was, if a child or a student or a teenager started saying comments and jokes about my Tourette's, my hyperactivity, my whatever, if I could make a funnier one and let them know that their comment didn't affect me in the slightest, it would drop off. It's kind of like if someone wants to punch as hard as they can a few times into this wall and they don't make a hole, they stop punching, right? And so I just had to kind of let them know it doesn't affect me, plus my jokes are funnier. So it would shut them up. The other thing I've noticed is when you tell someone you've got Tourette's and then you very quickly say, "Oh, by the way, I don't care. Like, I'm not insecure, but I don't care. Make any joke you want. It doesn't bother me. I'm never offended." They feel comfortable being Aussie and be like, "Oh, he's got Tourette's," and they'll make some jokes of a way of affection, as Australians do, right?
Yeah.
And very quickly, those jokes die off because the novelty gets old. Then a month or two will go by after meeting this person and the jokes have gone up. The jokes significantly drop. And then after about 2 or 3 months, they go, "I don't even realize you have that anymore. I don't even notice it.
Yeah.
My tics have never changed." But the novelty wears off and they get over it very quick. The quicker you let them know I don't care, I always let them know, "Yeah, man, make any joke you want. Just make sure it's funnier than mine."
Yeah. And you can control these tics, I can imagine, because you're a public speaker. You've also been in the film and television business, and being able to control them and how stressful that must have been. What were some of the social cues or techniques that you would do to try and disguise that, especially being on TV?
There were many different techniques I would use. First of all was, I didn't want to suppress, because suppressing is just going a long time without doing it, which is kind of like having an itch. You just wait and then all of a sudden you scratch. So what I would do is I would notice when the camera was on me. Then I would notice when the camera was away. And while it was looking away, I'd step to the side and tick, 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 and then back in, right?
Yeah.
Almost give myself checkpoint breathing spaces. Then I was like, I can't keep doing that. What if I could tick on screen and no one see it? So I started experimenting with different movements. And the way I explain it in my keynote is if I tick 200 times a day over 3 months, that's 18,000 ticks. Now, if I do one slightly different every time, that's 18,000 variations of that tick. Okay. So in 3 months, that's a very different tick because it's changing by 1% every time.
Yes.
So what I had to do is understand what it was. My brain sending a message to my body, and my body would respond to that message, just like an itch. And there's unwanted, it's like a click of a finger. Let's use a click of a finger, for example. So I would think, what is that message? Oh, okay, there's a sensation on my rude finger and a sensation on my thumb. Well, how do I get that sensation? Maybe I can press them together. No, that doesn't work. What if I squeeze the knuckle? Ooh, that seems to work a little bit. And then all of a sudden, maybe in a week, it's a Spider-Man tick. And then after that, it's a scrunching tick. And then after that, it's a wrist roll. And so you're able to, if you ask a simple question of what is the feeling my brain is telling my body to feel? And then just see if you can isolate that feeling with a range of different moves. And over a while, you can change it.
Yeah. What's the longest you've had to hold your ticks? Like, can you go the whole entire day without ticking? Have you ever tried that?
I don't know, because I think because I went through this journey of this is who I am, I tick, then I kind of stopped caring. So if I tick, I tick.
Yeah.
When I tick out and loud in public and people notice, it doesn't bother me that they look. Sometimes I smile because I think it's kind of funny. So I don't think I've ever tried, and I wouldn't have noticed. I kind of stopped trying to notice them. I remember when I was younger, my brother asked, let's see how long you can stop doing it. And I fell asleep, and he was like, yeah, you didn't tick for hours. So we learned I don't tick in my sleep. I know a lot of people who do. They do tick in their sleep and they wake themselves up from it. But yeah, I don't. And yeah, I don't know how long I've gone without it. I will say there was a period of my life where I didn't tick.
Yeah.
It was before doing this job as a keynote speaker. See, one of the triggers for Tourette's is talking about it. So my job is to talk about it, which means when I was on radio, I ticked barely anything, like to the point where I was between 27 and 31, I think I was, maybe 26 to 30. Anyway, very rarely would I tick, to the point where I felt like it had gone. Then I became an ambassador for Tourette Syndrome Association Australia, going to schools, conferences, and very openly online, everything, talking about it.
Yeah.
I ticked more.
Yeah. And you make Tourette's your superpower. You know, you turn it and channel it into a positive movement, that being different is not a bad thing. Like, I take, for example, if you look at Steve Irwin, I think he might have been on the spectrum.
Oh, yeah, probably.
He 100% was on the spectrum. Like, he was very hyperactive, over the top, but that's why people liked him. He was very sort of energetic, enthusiastic. He turned whatever was going on in his world into a superpower. But you're open and candid about your Tourette's. And, you know, if we dive into your career journey through film and television, you know, you landed, I think, if I read correctly, at 18, you landed your first major TV show, Toasted, which was huge. And what was that like, to be thrown in the deep end?
That was the greatest job I've ever had in the world. 18 years of age, being a TV presenter for a cartoon show at Movie World, Dream World, Wet n Wild, SeaWorld. I got to meet so many like celebrities. The negative thing was being a young man, 18, being on national television, you're treated differently. You're amongst celebrities. You're amongst people who are sucking up to you because you're a celebrity to a degree. That's not how the world operates. That's not society. So it pumps up your tires. And at 18, you don't know how to unpump those tires. So for 7 years, I was on national television, Toasted TV, Totally Wild. I was rubbing shoulders with A-list Hollywood celebrities like Sarah Silverman, John C. Reilly. I met Kermit the Frog, you know, some really high-level people.
You interviewed some of these people too, didn't you?
Yeah, Kevin
Yeah,
James,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
100%.
But yeah, I thought pretty highly of myself. And for 7 years, not lining up to nightclubs when I'd go out and people taking photos of me, given the exclusive booth or whatever, which is all BS, meaningless, social stupidness. Okay. But yeah, it definitely pumped up my tires, man. But that was the best job I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was so good.
What did that experience teach you about pressure and confidence?
Sink or swim. There were many times I was very, very nervous, whether it was before interviewing Jason Segel and Kermit the Frog, packing it, really like hyperventilating, freaking out. I had to fly down to Sydney, up into like this amazing hotel where they all are, the cameras are blah, 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 blah. Too many people, like publicists and everything. Yeah, really nervous. So over many years, we would film 2 days a week. And in those 2 days, we would film 7 episodes every week. And we had to get 365 episodes a year. Okay. Every day it was on, which was a reps game. If I would get nervous, I would try new ways to harness those nerves into excitable energy because I needed to be the best on screen as I could. I was very career driven at a young age, very passionate about this job, very passionate about my future. So for me at that age, everything lined up to I'm going to be a successful television presenter. So every time I was nervous, I had an opportunity to try a new technique. And I developed a way to turn nervous energy into excitable energy. And that was through mind games, positive visualization, and also breathing and noticing my hand shake. So I would do breathing techniques. I would loosen up my body, feeling really loose instead of stiff, because there's a saying where the mind goes, the body follows.
That's true.
So if you're scared, your body will stiffen up. So I wanted to undo that and uncoil that. So I would loosen up the body to make the mind more relaxed. Then I would do other things like, some really deep, calm breaths, because I'd notice if you're nervous, your breath is like shaky, and I would try breathing techniques to make it really smooth. The big one was I would use my, inflated ego to my advantage. So I would go to the side and I would champion myself, pump up my own tires. You're amazing. You're the best. You're going to dominate this, bro. You never get nervous. Like I would really go and just really give myself a pep talk. And I was able to, I don't know if it's being naive or being dumb, or I don't know, but I was able to disassociate and tune out, turn off, and just do the job without allowing external factors to impact me. So yeah, there is a range of different confidence techniques that I developed and tried to make sure I would go on live television and still perform. The biggest lesson that I got from all of it is make sure you know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Make sure you understand point A to point B and what you're saying in between.
Yeah.
Because if your mouth can just say out what you want, what you've been planning to say, your mind can think about a million different things, or things can interact, but you've done the rehearsals, you've done the reps. It just comes out naturally.
Yeah.
So the more you rehearse, the more freedom you have.
Yeah. And how did you manage the art of being able to listen attentively? Because I've noticed with you, you spend a lot of time listening and trying to sort of extrapolate what the person's saying and then be able to respond. And that's very difficult with someone with ADHD. And we all sort of on the spectrum to some degree. And I mean, I've had, points in my life where someone said to me, look, you're not listening to me, and there's a million other things that you got going on. But what are some of the skills that you learn how to be a better listener?
That's a really good question. I think, again, an answer is reps. And one of the things I had to really learn was everybody is always thinking of what they're going to say. And I would listen to a lot. I spent a lot of time on my own. Yeah. When I moved from Brisbane to Adelaide to do Totally Wild. I knew no one. So I spent a lot of weekends on my own at cafes, people watching, going out on, nights out, whatever it was. So I would watch a lot of people. I would eavesdrop. And I picked up on conversations, and that people would never engage in conversations. Instead, they are waiting for their turn to talk and say their thing. And it was always about them. And I remember noticing, because I was obsessive with my career of being a TV presenter, I would watch a lot of presenters, interviewers, personalities, and I would study them, like Michael Parkinson, Andrew Denton, Graham Kennedy, Graham Norton, and Rove. Like, I would really analyze them and listen to their interviewing technique. And I found when there's a host that talks too much about themselves and brings too much of their personality into it, it annoyed me, because I would listen to that interview to listen to the celebrity.
That's right.
And I'm like, shut up, man. It's about them. And once I kind of, I guess, picked up on that, and I learned how to make the guest shine, then I was listening selfishly. So let me try and...
For your own benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of listening, waiting for my benefit to talk, I was listening with the intention of asking more about them from a selfish point to be a better host, to get the most out of them, because I knew the audience wanted to hear about them.
Yes.
So it was selfishly being selfless. I hope that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah, it does. Yeah. And I think too, listening is something that, a lot of people struggle with, just being able to attentively listen to a person and then be able to respond and asking the right follow-up questions. Because sometimes when we're having conversations, we get sidetracked. We think, shit, what's the next question I need to ask?
Yes.
It's like when you go on a date. When you go on a date, right? For people that are in the romance sort of scene, you go on a date, you're asking questions about the other person, and then you're trying to think of some follow-up questions. But if you're not careful, they might ask you something, and then you might sort of say back to them what they've already told you. And they say, I've just told you that. How do you reconcile that? That's a difficult one too.
I think doing your best to sit in the moment. And this is where the ability to silence your mind.
Yes.
So talking about those techniques earlier with the confidence, silencing your mind, whether it's being naive and not thinking, or whether it's, I think, whether this is a flaw or a strength of mine, I don't know. But I'm able to walk blindly into a situation. That means I don't overthink. That means, like, for example, let's use jiu-jitsu. I can confidently walk into a role knowing I'm going to get my ass kicked, but I don't think about my ass getting kicked, if that makes sense. And then during the moment, I'm getting smashed. But prior, I'm not scared, and I don't think about it, because at that present time, nothing's happening. So right as things are about to kick off in an interview or whatever, I have just been able to empty my mind and not think about anything and be present. Not all the time, not in my personal life, not. In fact, it's very hard for me to be present, but in an interview, being present is the only thing you can do to get the best out of the person you're interviewing, I feel.
Yeah. And that's a very important skill. That's another thing that really can reflect in life, is just being able to focus on the present moment. Because I just got a shot a podcast with another person this morning, and she was saying that obviously depression is focusing too much in the past, anxiety is focusing too much in the future, and they always talk about being in the present moment, which is extremely difficult at times, especially we've got so much going on. And I can imagine for you being able to actually stay present, but also if you're in a public space, being able to control your tics, it must have been extremely difficult for you.
Yeah. Yes and no. I don't know if you've ever looked into attachment theories.
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
So I am what's the attachment theory where you're not attached? What's that one?
Avoidant?
I'm avoidant.
Avoidant, yeah.
Which means you detach. So to give you some sort of understanding of my family dynamics, youngest of 4 kids, and mum and dad. We also used to have a lot of people living with us, like students or like friends of the family or whatever. Now, there was a lot of yelling and healthy arguments, in my house. and a lot of friction, a lot of tension. So from a young age, I learned how to disassociate and detach from the intensity of my environment, which has probably led to my ability to, in those, I guess, anxiety-inducing moments of excessive ticking, excessive fidgeting, teachers talking too much, I can just tune out and daydream and be somewhere else, which is disassociating and avoidant, right?
Yeah.
But I guess it's that which has been able to help me when life is too busy. I'm mentally somewhere else.
Mm.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I can be present and I can not be present.
What do you think is one of the mistakes we are making as a society when it comes to how we educate children? In particular, you talk a lot about resiliency, overcoming hardship and adversities. And you speak openly about your struggles and how adversity can be your superpower. And you've shared your story with countless students.
Mhm.
You know, when you talk to a lot of these young people, you know, what is the message that you want them to take away from your talks?
You can't change the world, but you can change your world. I think it's very important that we take the bubble wrap off and expect things from the world because of a diagnosis, because of poor me, because I am a victim to a diagnosis or a bad upbringing or whatever it is. The world doesn't care.
No.
The world only cares about how you carry yourself, how you conduct yourself, and how you behave. And yes, there are reasons why you're lashing out. There are reasons why you're behaving that way. There are reasons why you are who you are, what you are, etc. But you have always got a choice. I always say you can't choose what happens to you, but you are always in control of how you handle the situation and your next move. That is in your control.
Mm.
And I really feel it's important that young people, even old people, accept the fact that the world ain't going to cater to you. You need to change your world, not try and change the world.
Yeah.
Because they ain't.
Mhm.
Like whenever I meet a kid with Tourette's, I always try and tell them, or even parents, people are always going to look for the rest of your life. They're going to double take, they're going to look, they're going to question, they're going to look at you weird. Even if you're hyperactive with ADHD, even if you know, autistic, whatever it might be, OCD, turning the light off 100 times, whatever, people are always going to go, what the hell are you doing, man? They're always going to do it. So get very used to it and accept it. Don't fight everyone. Like the amount of times growing up, I would get in fights. I would challenge someone. What are you looking at? Stop looking at, oh, it's my Tourette's, and push him, whatever. Then I had to be like, how many people am I going to fight for the rest of my life? I've got to give this up. It's going to happen forever. So there's two ways you can live. Fight everyone or get over it. That's how I think, really.
And how can kids develop that emotional resiliency that you've developed? Because I look at teaching martial arts. I teach kids, and I was having a conversation with one of my students. You know, he got tapped out. He was angry. He was hurt. He was frustrated. And I said, "That's life. You know, you get down, you get back up again." But what are some things that you can sort of educate, I guess, parents out there that might be watching on how they can better address teaching kids about emotional resiliency and understanding that these are all the building blocks, the foundation to making you a better person and being able to handle life in general?
When it comes to resilience, resilience is just getting back up after being knocked down. When you're met with a difficult situation, getting back to normal quick. That's resilience, right? Which means you've got to be experienced in difficult. So as a parent, and finally I am a parent, so I kind of, my child is only 2, so I don't have much experience. But I can understand, and what I would like to do with my child is when they are going through a difficult time, my instant reaction is to try and make them laugh, change it, get out of it. But it has to be allowing them to go through that difficult time and letting them understand that it's not the end of the world and it's normal. And the moment you can kind of pat yourself on the back and give yourself a little, not get out of it, don't be an idiot. You just shouldn't feel like that. You're weak. that does the opposite effect. But once you kind of go, hey, this is really hard, you're right, but we're not going to die. This is tough, but we're going to get out of it. Let's just sit it through. Then you get to the other side and you go, see, we're back to normal. Then the next time you get hit down, you go, hey, remember how it was really tough and how quickly you came back to normal? Well, let's see how long this one lasts. Then the third time, then the fourth time, and then it's a reps game. So it's unfortunate, but I have to tell a lot of parents, hey, your kid has to go through it. It's a hard time, but they've got to go through the hard time.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Never leave their room? They just have to, accept the fact that they're going to face hard times.
Yeah.
And during it, as much love as possible. And one thing I had to do in psychology, because I psychologically beat myself up. If I don't work hard enough, you're an idiot, you're a failure, you're dumb, you're never going to be successful. And I would mentally beat myself up.
Yeah.
My psychologist had to pull me out of that and basically appreciate that sometimes I'm not perfect and sometimes I am not going to work 100 hours of the day, and to be a bit more kinder on myself. And I know that sounds like, because I grew up from that mindset of boys don't cry, toughen up, stiff up the lip, I'll give you something to cry about, this kind of mindset, right? So coming from that notion of it's all right, be kind to yourself. It's like, oh, don't be a sook. That's a weakness. But if you are kinder to yourself and you speak to yourself more positively, you actually are able to handle those harder times easier. Yeah. That's what I found. And I'm like, oh, it actually works.
Yeah. You know, there's a video that you posted. I think you were referring to tomatoes.
Oh, yes.
And they've done studies on this. They've done studies on how you talk to yourself has a huge impact on just your whole mental health. And you were talking about the tomatoes where you talk about this, talk about the tomatoes.
So the whole theory of talking to plants, mate, if you speak to plants, they grow faster, right?
Yeah.
And so my dad experimented with it and he got 5 tomatoes and he cut the tomatoes in halves and he put one half of the tomatoes in sealed sandwich bags and wrote good, the other half bad, separate ends of the room. And every day for 2 weeks, he would like walk past the ones that said bad and like abuse them. Then he'd walk past the ones that said good and really say nice things to them. And I've got a photo and I show it in my keynote. There is a very big difference between the ones that say good and bad.
Yeah.
They're still moldy and decaying because they're fruit, but very big difference. The ones that said bad, rotten.
Yes.
Full-blown acidic gases, right? The ones that said good, only a little bit of mold on one of them. And so I kept researching this to find out what it is. There are so many different studies that show when you talk to a plant positively, it grows faster.
Yeah.
There are many different variables. I even started testing it, and this is where you start sounding crazy, but to animals. And I remember I went horse riding up in Noosa, and I remember saying, like, if you just say positive, nice stuff to things, people like it's the energy that the being will pick up on.
Yes.
So I got off this horse and I went up to her and I was like, you're so amazing. You did such a good job. It was so great riding. You're an incredible beast. And it was like, I'm saying, oh my gosh, it's working. And whether it worked or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer of words and the power words have, especially of what you say about yourself. Obviously, yes, there is that element. Remember, I grew up on sticks and stones, broke my bones, but words would never hurt me. So I was able to kind of have water off a duck's back. But my internal dialogue used to be very, very abusive. I've done a lot of work to make it more positive and to be my cheerleader. And that, I have noticed a significant improvement in my well-being.
Yes. I think Bruce Lee had a famous quote. I can't remember how it goes. He said, do not speak negatively about yourself. I can't remember how the rest of it goes, but I mean, he was well ahead of his time, Bruce Lee, but he has some very insightful quotes. But there's a message to it, I guess. What he was trying to say is how you speak to yourself. You would never talk to your family members, your spouse like that, your closest friends. And why should we talk to ourselves that way? And sometimes too, like, as well, Seamus, like kids can be their own worst critics. Like I've seen them like, oh, I didn't get this and, you know, I'm a failure. And they really do. They really impress upon this negative experience that they have. So what would be some insightful tips that you would share to parents out there, or let alone kids, on how to be a better critic for themselves, how to talk positively and nicely about themselves?
I would say, instead of trying to catch yourself in the moment, get ahead of the game and actively write down sentences that combat or are the opposite of what your brain is saying. So if you're able to sit down and go, yeah, so what did my, a kid doing jiu-jitsu got beaten up. I suck at this. I'm not good enough. Okay. Let's combat those sentences. Not for I suck, I'm learning and I'm loving this learning journey. Well, what happens when you're learning? You get hurt. Okay. I'm loving getting hurt as I learn to do jiu-jitsu. Actively write something like that down. Like I would actively write down, I am funny, I am smart, I deserve this job, I am enough as I am. I would just really write down these things, and I would do it line for line, page for page, and read it out loud and say it out loud every single day, over and over and over. And I think if a child is really beating themselves up, which is a pretty common thing, a nice little exercise to write down sentences that mean a lot and to empower that child and say them daily. Try it for a month, because if you're brand new to it, I doubt you're going to get through the month. But if you can, you'll notice a difference. And it's a win-win, because if it doesn't work, hey, guess what? I'm wrong. You can prove me wrong. You're right. Okay. But if it does, hey, it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been a lot of discussion too, Seamus, about helicopter parenting.
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And do you think parents are overprotecting their kids? Because I think understanding that, you explained that beautifully just before, is letting your kid fail and learn through the trials and tribulations of what's required to do difficult things gives them that gratification, that sense of fulfillment once they've conquered something. This is the whole thing with the ice bath craze that we're doing, jump in freezing cold water, how you feel afterwards, doing difficult things. But what would be the one thing that parents need to understand about overprotection of their kids?
That's a hard one, because for a long time I was asked, do you want your kids to have Tourette's or whatever? They used to say, are you worried about your kid having Tourette's? Because it is hereditary. And I would say, no, I'm not worried. That's on them. I learned how to deal with it. They can deal with it. And maybe, I'll be able to help them along the way. I have a child. I wish nothing ever happens bad, negative to my child, that they go for the rest of their life angelic, and not once do they experience anything negative. But that can't happen. It's very, very tough. I also think when people are being helicopter parents, it's because they're trying to correct their own childhood, and they're kind of probably a bit frustrated at their parents that they let them do X, Y, and Z. They fell over that time. They weren't being heard, whatever it might be. Okay. So I really see a pattern of parents either repeating their parents or doing the opposite of their parents, which means, in my opinion, they're not parenting that child the way they need to be parented. They're trying to not make the mistakes their parents made. Anyway, when it comes to not helicoptering, the parent needs to be okay to be a cheerleader and understand that they're not running the race. All they can do is stand by the sidelines with a cup of water, cheering them on.
Yeah.
It's their life now. It's not the parents. And they're going to experience pain. So be there when they do and shine their armor.
Yeah.
Because they're going to face the world, and it's going to be tough.
Should there be a subject in school that teaches kids about overcoming obstacles and setbacks and resiliency and doing difficult tasks? And I guess you could call it personal development. Do you think that would radically change this generation? Because I think this generation is anxious as ever. They are super anxious. They are glued to their phones, and we're all culprits of that. I'm a culprit of doom scrolling. We all do that. But what do you think, as opposed to having a curriculum in school that teaches kids about personal development?
Anyone who invests in themselves, they improve themselves. You invest in yourself, you improve yourself. So the more you invest in it, the more you personally develop, the more you invest in your well-being, your physical being, whatever it is, then that will improve.
Yeah.
So there is no setback to having a dedicated class in school or a subject, a curriculum or whatever, trying to empower an individual and teaching them how to empower themselves. Because if there's one thing that I've learnt by researching and learning and looking at successful people, they know how to pump up their own tires. They know how to champion themselves. They know how to walk in bravely to something that they are underqualified for, and they do it anyway. The biggest challenge, the biggest fault that I think in our society is our society has said, learn this before you do it, instead of learn while you're doing. I had a chat with a student the other day and I said, what do you want to do after school? She goes, well, I want to study social media because I really want to do something with brands. And I'm like, you don't have to study that. Just do it. In my mind, I'm like, I hire someone to do my social media. I'll give you a job now. Just do it. You don't need to study anything.
Yeah.
We have this, and obviously it must be a business. Here you go. Pay for uni before you become X, Y, and Z. Look, if you're a doctor, don't learn on the job. Okay. let's get that theory happening now. Okay. But the biggest setback to people, I think, is they're too scared to just take a fucking shot. Just get into it.
Yeah.
You're going to fall, bro. Put a helmet on, chuck some knee pads on, get on the board.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like to sort of tell people that if you look at some of the most successful people on the planet, let's look at Michael Jordan, for example, one of the greatest basketball players ever, got dropped from his high school basketball team. Walt Disney, I think, got fired at one stage in a job because he lacked imagination. Like, how the fuck can you tell that guy lacks imagination? The inventor of Mickey Mouse. So I think I think failure is a stepping stone. And you talk about these things with kids. And what's some of the feedback from the kids or even the parents that have come to see you?
You know, it's fascinating you say that. Every time it's different. There's a lot of times I can tell I've spoken, like my story is Tourette's, ADHD, struggling at school, right? That's not everyone's story.
Yeah.
Maybe I've had many different kids with many different situations. I had a kid recently break down. He pulled me aside and he said, oh, I'm really struggling at home and it's affecting me. How do I bring myself back up? Mum and dad just split up, and he just started bursting out in tears. And that's a really hard thing to see. A little kid who's so vulnerable and scared and they haven't even hit puberty yet. Like, this is a real vulnerable moment. And he broke down in tears. And that was tough for me because I was like, this poor kid, man. And I had to really tell him, you know, it's how you talk about yourself. This is a hard time, but it's not your fault. Don't beat yourself up. Learn how to talk to yourself like that good tomato. Champion yourself every single day. And I see it. I had a grade 3er. The parent came up to me and said, what you said to my child, they have negative thoughts all the time. They speak about themselves really poorly and they call them these negative intrusive thoughts that they can't stop thinking about. And I speak about if there's a green grass oval and you drive a car over it every day, you get dirt tracks. But if one day you change and go from, instead of point A to point B, you go from point A to point C, eventually those tracks grow over and you create new tracks. And our brains act the same way. And once I told this kid in grade 3, they were so excited that they now were aware that it's possible to change. So every single time I talk, it's very different. And I get a lot of really positive feedback, which is nice.
Yeah. So how many schools are you actively speaking at throughout the year?
I've been doing this. This is now, I think, coming up. Next year will be my 5th year.
Wow.
So in the last 4 years, I've spoken in hundreds of schools. I can't put a number to it.
And is it like an hour presentation or how?
Yeah. So it all depends. Sometimes I'll do a whole day. So I'll do primary schools. I like to split it up from prep to year 2 and then year 3 to year 6. Separate presentations. The preps are like half an hour.
Yeah.
And then the older ones, they're 45 minutes. This very same story, but has to be delivered differently for the different minds. And then I'll do the parents and the teachers, and I'll do a naughty or neurodivergent workshop, and we understand different symptoms, different tics, different diagnosis, the process, and get to field some questions. Then for high schools, I've got like a leadership workshop. I've got I do my superpower presentation, and I've got a whole other I've got like build an arc, attitude, resilience, and confidence. multiple different sessions. It's just had to diversify and grow because I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. If you could give the listeners one powerful message about resilience, confidence, and turning adversity into opportunity, what would that be?
That it is all your choice. To accept that it's a really powerful but hard message, because it's easy to become a victim and blame the world. But it is your choice of what you do next. So you can't choose what happens to you, but you can control what you do next. And it's easier to blame. It's easier to stay a victim. Very easy, because it's not your fault. But it is your fault if you sit there for too long because you chose to sit there. You're all going to be faced with adversity, whether you become a hero or a victim, that's on you. So once you accept the fact that it is in your control, then you can start making moves in the right direction. But you must accept that it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
Which is hard. A lot of people don't want responsibility. It's easy to point the finger.
Mm-hmm. I have a good friend of mine. He's also a jiu-jitsu practitioner as well. And he's overcome, extreme hardship. He's a cancer survivor as well. And he said to me once, life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. And that everything that happens in life is the building blocks. What does that mean to you, as life happens for you, not to you?
At the moment as I'm 35, I actually grew up in the church, right, in Pentecostal Hillsong. Okay. Then I went away from it because I liked girls and partying and the church not like that. But as I've gotten older, I kind of have started investing into research in the Bible and Christianity and God and spirituality and blah, 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 blah. And although that is not something that you can explain and not something that you can kind of give an answer to, but I do believe that I do personally believe that you are here for a reason and that there is something bigger than you. And once you're able to tap into that, you can navigate the twists and turns that life throws at you easier.
Yeah. And how does someone find their purpose? Because that's a really difficult thing. You don't really know when you're 16, 17, what your purpose is going to be. You don't know the direction where you want to go in life. And parents will say, you should do this and this and, get your degree in, if it's medicine or becoming an accountant or whatever it is. And then you realize, shit, this is not what I want to do. Like how does someone navigate their way through life and figure out what their purpose is?
I think there's a two-pronged approach to this. Number one is try everything. Try as many different things, experiences as you can, and and listen to your gut, because when something is right for you, your gut goes bananas, and it's like it's perfect. It's the perfect match. And so when you're miserable at work, it's because you're not on fire for it, man. It's not for you, but you've fallen into it because you think it's the smart thing to do. But that's through trial and error. The next thing is understanding what you're good at. And there's a saying, I talk to a very good friend of mine I talk to quite often. And we came up with this concept that you can never choose. You can't choose what you're good at and you can't choose what you're famous for. You just have to do, and naturally things flow into place. But in order for that to happen, you need to really have confidence in yourself and love yourself and pursue your passions. And that's your interests, your likes, which is going ahead in life fearlessly. Because if you're constantly listening to the negativity, the self-doubt, or what if, then your blinders are on and you hesitate. But if you just learn how to get rid of that fear and just passionately live your life, things fall into place. And sometimes you don't choose, you don't choose what you're good at. Sometimes you naturally develop an amazing talent for X, Y, and Z. Well, guess what, mate? That's your purpose, and it wasn't your choice. It's just what
Yeah.
you're good at, so you got to do it.
Yeah, I think you're right too. I think try different things. And I heard famous strength coach Charles Poliquin, he said, following your passion is bullshit. You need to
Oh,
get
yes.
you need to get good at a skill
Yeah.
first. Like you can't just say I'm passionate about playing the violin when you've never played the violin before in your life.
Yeah.
You get good at a skill and then your passion comes out of that.
So I'm so glad you brought that up, because at this particular phase in my life, I wouldn't say I'm really good at anything, or I don't really have a skill, so to speak. I've just had to back myself.
Public
Okay.
speaking.
Yeah, sure. Okay. But I'm at this point now where I'm like, I want to learn a skill. I want to be really good at one thing because I've never done it. I've only just had to, my whole career is just being me. That's the only thing I know how to do, right? But yes, I think that's very true.
Yeah.
Learn how to do something really good.
And well, that's what you do, mate. Like you're a public speaker, you motivate, you inspire, you change lives, you give people direction, you give people some, thoughts of their own on what they can do differently and how they can live a better life. That's a skill. Public speaking and what you're doing now, and speaking to kids, there's a really important message that you're teaching these kids about. Hard times are going to happen. Being able to understand that things are going to happen to you, and realize that it's going to take a bit of work, to get to point A to point B. But yeah, mate, I think public speaking is something, because you've done tens of thousands of reps at it, and you seem passionate about it.
I do like.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very.
Yeah. Have you got any other talks coming up? And would there be room to maybe talk to even high performance entrepreneurs, people that are sort of in the business space that are really trying to sort of excel? Would there be some possibility there?
Yeah, hugely. I do a lot of conferences. I've got a conference coming up down on the Gold Coast soon. I'm also in talks for a lot of conferences next year. I do a lot of corporate teams and a lot of like smaller high performing teams of maybe between 5 to 10, 15 people maybe. I've done that countless times. I do enjoy catering to different audiences, like going from prep kids to 80-year-old businessmen who can't retire because they're obsessive about their work, So it is always interesting having to change my delivery, read the room, and execute to cater to who's in the room watching.
Yes. And what have you got coming up, mate? So obviously the conferencing, but have you got some more schools to finish off for the rest of the year?
I've got a handful of schools leading up before Christmas, but really at the moment it's looking for, I'm in talks with many different schools to line up and find those dates for term 1 and term 2 next year.
Amazing, mate. And you're on the socials, you're on YouTube and Instagram, and where can people find you?
SeamusEvans.com. Instagram is the Seamus Evans Show. Facebook's Mr. Seamus Evans. It's so hard to get your name as everything. Yeah. There's someone else called Seamus Evans. You jerk. Yeah. Give me that Instagram.
Yeah. And you're on TikTok as well. You've got a TikTok account. You've got a pretty large following on TikTok. So you're all over social media platforms, and you've also got a podcast as well.
Yes.
You've shot a few episodes with some amazing guests, and I was also honoured to be on your podcast too, mate.
Yes.
So that was really fun. That was exciting, and we had a good conversation, mate. But I wanted to thank you for coming on the show today. And hopefully down the track, mate, there might be some room that maybe you and I can intertwine and put our expertise together. Because I'm in the social media space at the moment. I'm looking to really sort of reach the masses, and even kids. But yeah, there might be some room down the track, mate.
Sounds good, buddy. We'll have to have a roll.
Definitely.
One day, for sure. Cheers, man.